So, you want a daily race car? Well, good news, man. That makes you just like the rest of us. But like the rest of us, your pocketbook might not want you to. But don't be discouraged, because I have a surprise for you. You can make your daily driver feel just like a race car, and you won't even be sacrificing that much reliability. So listen up and listen good, because in the great words of Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last.
If you ain't first, you're last.
See you when you're grown up.
All right, so I'm gonna let you in on a few secrets of how to make your daily driver feel more like a race car. First part is gonna be wheels, tires, and suspension. Now for coilovers, you're gonna wanna grab something with a nice aggressive spring rate. I'm talking anywhere from 8K to 12K. And that's just gonna depend on how crazy you're feeling, but the more aggressive you go with the spring rate, or the higher you go with the spring rate, the more stiff your suspension will be, which means you're gonna have less body roll. If you can find something with camber adjustability all the way around instead of just in the front, you're golden. Wheel and tire setup are extremely important to your car, because modifying your wheel and tire setup can really change the feel of it, right? So if you have a larger wheel and a wider wheel, that means you have more contact area with the road, which should mean that you have more traction, which in turn means you can go around the track even faster and with more confidence if your car stays planted. So that is adding mechanical grip. If you upgrade your tire and go with a really sticky compound, it can decrease your braking distance quite a bit. And a lot of people think you need, big fat 6-piston Brembos to stop really quick. Not always the case. If you're able to outwork your OEM or your cheap tires or your mid-range tires that are on your car now, you don't necessarily need big brakes. You need a better tire. And better tires make a world of difference for handling and braking, which are two huge key factors in making your car feel more like a race car. Now let's talk chassis bracing. I'm a huge advocate of it because it works. So chassis bracing is really important because this is also going to increase the mechanical grip of your car by increasing the rigidity in the chassis. Now, for example, the Cusco power braces that go on the underside of your chassis, the trunk, and in the front, kind of where the crash bar is, they can do a lot for your car, and it can really make it feel that much better. Increasing the chassis rigidity will also make it feel more like a race car, because race cars have an insane amount of chassis rigidity, because a lot of race cars, true race cars, have cages built into them. And with a more rigid chassis comes more predictability. So if you're able to drive your car faster because you can predict where it's going and you're comfortable with the car, it's even better. And now for interior, the steering wheel is important because it's how you drive the car. And if you're not comfortable with how that steering wheel feels in your hands, it really makes a difference. So for me, I prefer a steering wheel with a smaller diameter, so my inputs aren't as muted, and something with Alcantara because I think it looks cool and it feels good. Now onto the seats. Really, any bucket seat is gonna be an improvement from factory, because the factory bolsters don't hold you in, and when you're trying to hold yourself and prop yourself up while going around corners, it's not super safe and it's not very fun, because you're not focusing on the driving, you're focusing on not sliding around. And for your gauges, I always recommend running an air-fuel ratio, an oil pressure, and an oil temperature. Reason being is your air-fuel ratio gauge lets you know how the motor is running. And it's very important to keep an eye on your air-fuel ratio, especially when you're really hammering it, because you don't want to be lean under load, it'll blow your motor. As far as the oil pressure goes, another huge thing is if you start to notice a lack of oil pressure, you might be able to pull your car off the track before anything catastrophic happens. And oil temperature kind of goes hand in hand with that. Once your oil gets really, really hot, around 220 degrees or hotter, it starts to lose viscosity, which can cause catastrophic failure. And lastly, we're gonna talk power. And like I said in the beginning of the video, you don't need to make 1,000 horsepower to be a race car. So I'm gonna recommend you 3 things. A nice intake, whether it's short ram or cold air. One, because you're gonna let the engine breathe a little bit easier as opposed to that stock factory air box, which is really constrictive. And it'll make for nice power gains and nice turbo sounds. Number 2, you're gonna want an access port. An access port provides gauges for just about everything you need, and it's a super helpful tool, especially if you wanna throw aftermarket parts on your car, go get it tuned. Basically, it is the gold standard now for tuning. So if you wanna modify your car at all, you kinda need one. And it's also just helpful because you can set launch control, shift lights, a bunch of other stuff. And lastly, a turbo back exhaust. And that's just because a turbo back exhaust is going to provide a nice relief of back pressure, and also really good increases in power and sound. So most importantly, when you're driving a race car, you want it to sound like a race car, so turbo back will do that. And power, you know, the gains you get from the turbo back, downpipe especially, are pretty significant, and it's not a super expensive part. So it makes for great gains, great sound, and great bang for your buck. I hope you guys liked the video. I love making them for you guys. It's really the best part of my day. So if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. It lets us know how we're doing. Have yourselves a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.